Okay, in this tutorial we're going to be talking Figma components. Components are a super handy feature of Figma, and they allow us to use the same instance of a component across multiple layouts. For example, if we had 10 different layouts like this, but we wanted to use the same logo across all of the layouts, we would create a component logo and copy instances of the component logo across to the rest of the layouts. The reason why we use components is because we only have to change the original component once, and it changes all of the other instances of this component across all of your other layouts. So let's make a component. To make a component, we select the elements that we want to be in the component. Components can be made up of anything you want. They can be images, navigation, header copy, and buttons. Any single element within your Figma layout can be made into a component, and you can have instances of that component that you can change as well. So let's create a component. For our first component, we're going to make this logo here a component. So whenever we want to make something a component, we select all the elements that we wish to be within the component, and we can simply right-click, scroll down, and click Create Component. That has just created a component out of the logo. Over here in the Layers panel, we can see that the layer appearance has changed. It turns into this diamond format that is blue, and it has 4 little diamonds within the icon. If we open up the layer set, we can see all of these objects within the component are still there, but they're just grouped in a component layer. So for example, if we select the component and copy it, over here I've got another layout, and we select the frame, and then we can simply paste the component into this layout. Over here on the left hand side though, we can see that the component is not this particular item here is not the original component. It is a copy or an instance of our original component, which is this one here. Whenever we want to change every single instance of our component, we basically change the original component. Okay, that's super important. So when I change this original component here, the instance of that component here will change, and we can see that that is an instance by the way that it is indicated here within the Layers panel. It is simply a single diamond, whereas the original component is a solid blue diamond made up of 4 parts. And that's creating a component, and whenever you copy and paste the original component, it just keeps creating instances of that component that can easily be changed via changing the original component here. Okay, let's create another component. Components that I use again and again are also for buttons. So for example, if we want to change our main call to action button here into a component, we simply select it. At the moment it is auto layout, and that's fine. You can use auto layout in components, and again we right click here and we create component. So this button is now an original component, which we can see here in our layer set that it's been turned into an original component. If I select the original component, I go over to layout 2. Okay, I want to use this button within this layout. Great, we can paste it in, sits nicely within our auto layout. Now, one of the cool things about instances of components is that we can actually change stuff within the instance on any particular instance. For example, this is an instance of the component. If we want to change the text in here, we can. Get started. So we can actually change this component, but the properties are still with our main component here. For example, if I change the background color of the main component here into, say, a red, this is our main component. If we go over to our second layout, hey presto, we can see that the color of this instance has changed. So you can modify all of the original properties in the original component here, in the original component, and they will be reflected in the instance here. The other cool thing, like I said, is that you can change things within the instance here, but it doesn't get reflected in the main component because the main component is the master, if you will. Okay, the last part of our components tutorial is letting you guys know that the components are actually stored within a assets panel in layers. So for example, if we go over here to our layers panel, we can click here on the assets tab and we can see that all of our components that are featured within this Figma file are actually stored here in this little library. It calls them local components, meaning that these are the components within this file. The good thing about this is that if I'm working on any particular layout within any page or any layout of this Figma document, I can simply go over to my assets panel and I can grab a button and I can drag it out here anywhere I want into any of my layouts. It's the same with this component here. I can click on it and drag it into any of my layouts like so. So it just gives you quick access to your components here in this library. And that concludes our tutorial on components. Again, have a click around, create some components, and use those components throughout the rest of your layouts, and it will really help you speed things up.